The dawn spread like spilled honey across the prairie, slow and sorrowful. Frost clung to the grass as Eli McCord rode out from his ranch, his black horse, Cinder, breathing clouds into the chill morning air. The world was so still it felt like it had forgotten how to breathe. Eli's coat flapped lightly behind him, and his weathered eyes searched the horizon as though something might be waiting to rise from the golden mist. Some mornings, he muttered under his breath, the land remembers what we forget. For years had passed since the Dawson sisters, Lila and June, vanished without a trace. Two young girls lost to the wide country, their laughter replaced by whispers. The town of Cold Creek had mourned for a time, then buried the memory deep, calling it tragedy, calling it fate. But Eli never trusted that kind of forgetting. He had lost his wife to fever and sent his own daughter away when money got too tight, telling himself it was mercy. That memory still chewed at his sleep, that he rode the fence lines as he always did. But lately Cinder had been uneasy. The horse's ears twitched at invisible sounds. His muscles quivered as if sensing something beneath the earth itself. When Eli tried to lead him back toward the barn that evening, Cinder balked, staring toward the east where the canyons carved their red scars into the plains. The sky was heavy with copper clouds, and thunder rolled in the distance like a warning. "Easy, boy," Eli said, tugging the reins, but the horse reared, eyes wide, and broke free. Bolting toward the dark horizon, Eli cursed, spurring after him as lightning split the far-off ridge. The air smelled of rain and dust, sharp with the taste of coming storm. He chased the stallion through the prairie grass until they reached the lip of Cold Creek Canyon, the place no one went anymore. Cinder stood there trembling, his hooves pawing at a patch of ground near the canyon mouth. The storm's first drops hit Eli's face as he dismounted, the wind clawing at his hat. When he knelt by the disturbed earth, something soft brushed his fingers, a scrap of ribbon, pink once, now pale and frayed. The initials stitched into it were nearly gone, but not enough to hide. LD. The world seemed to tilt. He turned the ribbon over in his rough palm, feeling the years collapse into that small piece of cloth. It'd be by the time he reached town, night had fallen. Cold Creek's single street glimmered under lamplight, the sound of piano and laughter spilling from the saloon. He walked in with the ribbon folded tight in his hand. The conversations died like candle flames snuffed. Deputy Clara Boone was at the bar, her brown hat shadowing eyes that had known too many sleepless nights. She looked up as Eli approached. Mayor Silas Tulliver leaned against the counter nearby, his smile thin and unreadable. Eli placed the ribbon on the bar top. "Found this near the canyon," he said. Clara's hand froze halfway to her glass. "After 4 years." Her voice faltered. "You sure you want to stir that up again?" "Maybe they're not gone," Eli replied quietly. "Maybe we just stopped looking." The mayor's eyes darkened for a heartbeat before he forced a chuckle. "Let ghosts rest, McCord. Nothing out there but coyotes and wind." Eli said nothing more, only looked to Clara. After a long silence, she nodded once. "I'll ride with you at dawn." When they left the saloon, whispers followed them like shadows. People muttering about old wounds, about fools who didn't know when to quit. Clara had once led the search for those girls, had returned empty-handed, and been branded unlucky ever since. Eli understood that kind of silence, the kind that lives in a person's chest and won't let go. The next morning, the two rode out together beneath a low ceiling of mist. The prairie opened before them in pale gold and silver, dew clinging to the grass like tears. They didn't speak much. Words felt too heavy for what waited between them. The canyon rose ahead, its walls glowing faintly red in the morning light. Cinder led the way without need for the reins, descending narrow switchbacks carved into the rock. The air grew cooler, filled with the scent of sage and stone. At the base, they found signs. A torn scrap of cloth caught on a mesquite branch, a rusted tin cup, the faint outline of a fire ring long cold. Clara knelt, her gloved fingers tracing the ash. "They were here," she whispered. "I can feel it." Eli looked around the shadows of the canyon, the way the light barely reached the ground. "Then why didn't anyone find them before?" Clara didn't answer. She didn't need to. The truth hung there between them. The mayor had called off the search too soon, said it was hopeless. She had obeyed, and it had eaten her alive. They made camp that evening beneath an overhang of rock. The wind moved through the canyon like a restless ghost. Clara hummed softly beside the fire, an old tune the Dawson girls used to sing in town. Eli closed his eyes, hearing it echo against the stone, and something inside him cracked open, a memory of his daughter's small hands. The sound of her laughter before the world had hardened him. "You ever think," he said after a while, voice barely above the crackle of the fire, "that the lost ones can still hear us?" Clara stared into the flames. "Maybe they can," she said. "Maybe that's why the wind never stops here." The fire burned low. The rain came in fine silver threads, whispering against the rocks. Cinder stirred suddenly, lifting his head, ears twitching toward the deeper canyon. Eli rose, peering into the dark. "What is it, boy?" A sound floated through the storm, a faint metallic rattle, like chains shifting on stone, then something softer. A laugh, or a cry. The canyon swallowed it just as quickly. They sat in silence for a long time after that, each pretending not to have heard. Yet when Eli finally lay down, he dreamt of two girls standing in the rain, holding hands, waiting. And somewhere in that dream, Cinder stood beside them, guarding, listening, refusing to leave. At first light, a thin fog drifted along the canyon floor like breath made visible. Cinder snorted and began to move again, nostrils flaring as if following an invisible thread through the air. Eli and Clara packed quickly and followed him, their boots whispering against the damp stone. The canyon walls closed in tighter, rising like red cathedrals on either side. The horse led them to a narrow passage, half hidden behind a tumble of boulders. They squeezed through sideways until the rock gave way to a hollow basin bathed in pale gold. In the center stood the remains of a cabin, its timbers grayed by time and storm, the roof slouched as though weary of holding itself upright. Smoke stains marked the stones around a dead hearth. Clara's voice broke the hush. "No wonder we never found it." Eli pushed open the warped door. Inside, dust swirled in the beams of light. Two small cots stood side by side, their blankets sun-bleached and brittle. On the wall, drawings, flowers, horses, stars, then darker shapes, storms, eyes, tears. He touched the paper gently, his throat tight. Under one cot, his boot struck something hollow. He knelt and pulled out a rusted lockbox. The hinges squealed as he pried it open with his knife. Inside lay a stack of letters sealed with a crimson wax mark, the seal of Mayor Silas Tulliver. Clara's face drained of color as she unfolded the first one. The handwriting was deliberate, businesslike. "Deliver the girls safely to the prospector. Payment on receipt." Eli stared at her, the truth settling cold between them. "He sold them." Clara looked away, shoulders trembling. "I followed his orders back then. When he said the search was done, I stopped looking." He placed a rough, calloused hand over hers. "You did what you thought was right. Now we finish it." Outside, the canyon wind picked up, carrying a strange hum that seemed to come from the stone itself. Cinder lifted his head, nostrils flaring again. Eli followed the horse toward the far wall, where the sound of trickling water echoed faintly. Behind a curtain of vines, they found a crack in the rock barely wide enough for one person. Cool air spilled out, damp and clean. Eli went first, lantern in hand, squeezing through until the world opened into a cavern lit by slanting shafts of light. A small stream wound through it like a silver thread, then a sound. A cough. Clara drew her revolver, her voice steady. "Who's there?" From the shadows, two figures emerged, thin, pale, trembling. The older one, barely 16, stood protectively before the younger, whose eyes were wide and hollow. Lila and June Dawson. The lantern light trembled in Eli's hands. "Good Lord." The older girl spoke in a rasping whisper. "Please, don't take us back." Eli dropped to his knees, tears streaking his dust-covered face. Cinder stepped forward quietly, bowing his head as if recognizing them. Clara knelt too, lowering her weapon, her voice breaking. "You're safe now. I swear it." But Lila shook her head, eyes darting toward the canyon mouth. "He'll come. He always does." It took time, gentle words, shared bread, the steady calm of Cinder's presence, before the girls let them lead the way out. The morning had turned gray, rain whispering again over the canyon. The trail grew slick underfoot, water pooling in hollows that ate the rim of the canyon. Shapes appeared through the mist, 3 riders waiting. Mayor Tulliver sat tall on his horse, his coat buttoned against the rain, a pistol glinting in his hand. "You should have left well enough alone, McCord," he called. "Some things are meant to stay buried." Eli stepped forward slowly. "You buried children, Silas." The mayor's smile was small and cold. "You think anyone will believe a broken rancher and a disgraced deputy?" Cinder's scream tore through the air, rearing high as lightning cracked across the sky. The horses panicked, rain slashing sideways. In the chaos, Clara's hand moved like instinct. One shot, sharp, final. Tulliver's hat flew from his head and fell into the mud. He slumped backward, eyes wide in disbelief. The other riders fled without a word. Silence followed, broken only by rain pattering on stone. Clara stood motionless, revolver still raised, her breath shallow. Eli moved to her side and gently lowered her hand. "It's done," he said. She looked at him, eyes glistening. "Maybe now it can finally end." They buried the mayor near the canyon edge, unmarked. The girls huddled by the fire that night, wrapped in blankets, their faces ghost pale but alive. Clara sat nearby, silent except for the tremor of her breathing. Eli tended the flames, his hands steady now. When dawn came, the sky cleared into a fragile blue. The four of them stood together at the canyon rim, sunlight washing over their faces. Below them, mist curled like smoke from a quenched fire. Eli stroked Cinder's mane. "Funny, isn't it?" he said softly. "How a horse knew what the rest of us forgot, to listen." Clara smiled faintly, too tired for words. They rode back to town under the rising sun, the girls dozing between them, the world smelling of wet grass and new beginnings. Weeks later, Cold Creek looked different. The Dawson sisters laughed again, playing near the well. People who once whispered now watched in quiet awe. Clara wore the sheriff's badge once more, though she seldom spoke of that day. Eli rebuilt the old barn, adding 2 small rooms on the side, warm, safe, waiting for whoever needed shelter next. Sometimes he'd find Clara there in the evenings, brushing Cinder's coat in silence. No words passed between them, just the sound of the horse breathing and the wind outside carrying the last echoes of the canyon. And when the night was still enough, Eli would speak softly, more to himself than anyone. "Out here, the land keeps its own memory. It remembers every cry, every act of mercy, every soul that refused to stay lost. Maybe that's all we're meant to do. Listen, and keep remembering." The camera of imagination drifts upward then, showing the vast sweep of prairie. The canyon no longer dark, but calm beneath the morning light. Cinder stands at the edge, mane stirring in the breeze, watching over the land that has finally given up its ghosts.